greetings. We are live. If you can see me, if you can hear me, let me know. If you cannot, well, when you join us, you join us. um, Greetings. It's the first day of June, and so for those of you joining us, this is our what has become a regular connect or link up time, so to speak, for all of you sovereigns. So I just want to welcome you all into the space. I have a few things getting on that's like coming online right now. So if you can hear me, let me know. If you can see me, let me know. Right? That would be great. Just because I can, I don't know if I have to adjust anything or maybe lighting, maybe sound, maybe visuals. Let me know. So, since it's June, right? We've closed off May, and May, as you know, we spoke we touched on a few topics that help to highlight mental health. But this month of June, we're going to focus on healthy food options, right? And sometimes we are the sovereign needs, and I will talk about whatever pleases me. I will also talk about whatever is valuable to you and important to you all as well. But it hit me that summer is quickly approaching, and when summer approaches, I find we tend to be on the move a lot. We tend to maybe even try to work out because I guess it's our last shot at trying to have a summer bod, like, as some people say. But yeah, summer bods begin in winter actually. So yeah, maybe it's the last grasp or grapple for some semblance of fitness. And if that's the case, then it means that you really need to also scrutinize and look at health, right? And health from the perspective of what are you consuming. Greetings, Naya. So I want to greet Naya and Deidre Sully. She says, peace, can be heard and seen. How are you? I am well. How are you doing? What's going on with your day to day? Peace, Deidre Sully. How are you doing? What's going on with your day to day? Are you smiling or fussing? Let me know. Smiling or fussing? Which one? Greetings, Des. How are you? Peace, sisters. All right. So we're ready. We can jump right in. We will jump right in. Everything isn't working as it should, but that's okay. We can do this. Um, Deidre Sally says she's fussing. Oh my goodness. Fussing over what? Fussing over what? There's so many things that you could fuss about. Right? So many things you could fuss about, but there are other things that you could glory in and give thanks for. So glory in those things and give thanks for them because you did that. Those are all those other things. Forget the things you're fussing about. You probably can't even control the things you're fussing about, right? Let's, you know. But I wanted to just greet everyone and thank you all for joining us again. It is June, and in this June, I thought Naya says I'm fabulous. My fiery session is over. Oh, okay, all right, okay, okay. I don't know what that means. I'm afraid to ask, but okay. Okay. I know we all have those times when we have to go through refinement, and the refinement requires firing, so to speak. So I get it. I get it. I get it. I understand what's happening sometimes. So yeah. So in this June, I realized that maybe exploring healthy food options will be helpful for you all. And I came to that conclusion because I found myself thinking a lot about an experience many years ago. And that experience, I'll tell you a little bit about that before I jump into something else. My experience then was that, should I tell that story now? I'm going to wait. I'll wait. I'll push the story back a little bit. I'll push it back a little bit. I actually meant to jump in and share that story because it's like, should I search early on into our session, or should I push it back, right? But nah, I'll push it back. This month, for those healthy food options, right? We're going to focus on healthy food options because you probably have seen online, but you've seen a lot of stuff online, but you're probably reluctant to try them, right? Reluctant to jump into them to see what it's like to create them. Maybe you feel like you don't have all of the fancy equipment or all of the gourmet ingredients to include or to utilize in order to make the perfect health food option. That's okay, I got you. All right. And in order to support you, we're going to work on not just the plant-based talks but the demos to support you through those as well. So we'll have a bunch of plant-based talks that you can catch on YouTube, right? We can on our YouTube channel, this very channel. And for those of you who are over in Facebook land, join us on YouTube because you can find those plant-based talks. I have plant-based talks so that, just anyone, anyone who has lots of information or ideas that they want to share and build on. We have conversations and I share those on our YouTube channel. I also want to explore some specific herbs and foods with you all. And some of those specific herbs and foods, what they'll do is they'll help you to get stronger at being able to identify healthier food options for yourself and for your family. All right. Hence the reason why today's live, it was actually titled "No Dairy Necessary" because the idea is to pull you away from, you know, all of those who make you think that there will be some sort of nutritional deficiency when you begin to transition to a plant-based lifestyle, right? Not a diet, because we're not dying over here. We living, right? We're living, right? And we are both focusing on life and the style we're gonna live life in. So lifestyle. Lifestyle. All right. So in order to grab those explorations around food and herb, jump onto our Sovereign Eats podcast. You'll find a lot of that there. Every strong will be releasing a new one. The last one was a conversation with a sister on homeschooling. So we didn't explore herbs then, but you know, we explored what I wanted to explore, which was homeschooling. I couldn't be bothered. It was a topic that was helpful to mothers, and I felt that it was necessary. All our other upcoming topics for the month of June will focus on those herbs and foods to support you. And of course, we will have live broadcasts. Again, like I said, our raw demos will be our Sovereign Sundays live broadcast. We will be doing some raw foods, some high raw foods, and a little bit of cooked foods here and there because I understand. I like steamed, even I like stir fries because they're just really so good. All right. So a lot of the things that we cover today, you'll be able to utilize those in any foods that you make. All right. So here's the deal behind today's story, right? Today's focus on no dairy necessary. The reason we're focusing on no dairy necessary is because I know it is a huge contention, right? A lot of people, when you decide you're going to transition to a plant-based journey or lifestyle, everybody and their mama and them papa have an idea, they have an opinion about what it is that you have decided is necessary for your health, wealth, and to break health generational curses. And I specified health generational curses because there are other generational curses that we are charged to break, right? But one of them is the health, right? So the reason I focus on that was because I discovered that today is actually considered World Milk Day. So it's like World Milk Day, huh? How many types of milk have we been able to explore and discover thus far, right? And it's not just because of the vegan, movement, so to speak, But there are lots of people who are not interested in necessarily being vegan or identifying as such, but have made that transition to a non-dairy lifestyle or journey because it is healthy. It supports their systems in more ways than one, right? And for those of you who tuned into the type 2 diabetes plant-based talks, you would have gleaned from that episode that, yeah, that shifting away from animal-based fats is really important and very necessary, right? Very necessary for you to have a successful journey in this shift and in this change. And even for people who have not shifted and changed to plant-based is also very necessary. So what I discovered, that I was like, well, who created this day? Because I always hear about, there's this day and that day for this celebration and that day for that celebration. So for today, since it's the 1st of June, it is considered World Milk Day, and that was created by the Food and Agricultural Department or organization for the United Nations. And they did that because they wanted to celebrate the dairy industry. Let's not talk about that. We're going to talk about the dairy industry later on, y'all. Not today. They're not going to steal that giant today. Right? But they did that to celebrate the dairy industry, but also to recognize milk as a globally important food. And of course, when you talk about a food that's globally important or important just for you or me or, youth versus elders or, middle-aged women or middle-aged men or, young men versus growing men, you, the first thing you know that everyone is thinking about is calcium, right? The levels of calcium, the levels of protein. You've probably heard people ask those questions, and I'm going to tell you some of those questions that have been asked to me, some of the statements that have been made, right? Some of them are offensive, but some of them are clearly made by people who have not considered anything outside of the box that they've been asked to sit in and survive in. All right, so we're going to explore a little bit about that. And I think the World Milk Day, they're seeking to have conversation around the nutritional aspects of dairy, right? But there are many other ways to actually fortify and increase the nutrient capacity of your meals and of your lifestyle, right? Because it's not just about food, but we are the sovereign eats. So we're going to talk about everything that's directly related to food and eating and consumption. All right. So that's why I decided to share some information around this topic, because I do know that it is a challenge for many. Um, One of the challenges for many is that you may have heard people say, yes, you're transitioning, but you're going to be on that cheese for the rest of your life, right? You probably have heard that. You're going to be on that cheese for the rest of your life. There's a reason cheese is addictive, and we're going to scrutinize that. And I think I've been saying that for a while, but we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. We are going to get to it, right? There are other things too. You probably have heard others say, once you've shifted your lifestyle and you start eating um, just greens, right? Once you start eating just plant-based foods, you're probably going to feel weaker, right? And maybe that is true for some, but that's because you're not doing it properly. That's because you haven't transitioned properly. That's because you're leaning too much on wheat foods, white foods, forming foods, and you need direction. You need guidance. And that's the thing. I know a lot of people think, okay, all of that information is out there. I'm just going to run and watch as many videos as I want to. And that doesn't help, because what works for one body doesn't work for another, right? So, really important to make sure you have that guidance. Another thing you'll always hear is, you're going to hear things like where you're going to get your calcium from. right? I said that earlier. Where are you going to get your protein from? Your bones are going to become brittle. But as I said to you before, science and research has shown that raw vegans, right, people whose subsistence is primarily raw or high raw foods, have higher bone density. And we know the biggest issue for elders and even for men and women, women predominantly, as they become older, bone density is a problem, right? The health of the bones is important. And so making sure that you tune in to the needs of the body is very important. And the body needs greens. The body needs a healthy balance of greens in order to sustain calcium levels. The body needs adequate exposure to the sun, an adequate amount of vitamin D, not artificial synthetic vitamin D, right? D3, which is necessary. That's what you need in order for the body to assimilate and to function so that the bones are healthy and strong. All right. So milk is not necessary, at least dairy is not necessary, and I'll tell you how. So ignore all the naysayers, ignore all of those who kind of say, oh, well, you're going to slip off, you're going to slip off the bandwagon if you're a bandwagoner. You know, some people are. What can we do about it? But if you're going to slip off, if you think you're going to slip off, here's some news for you. You can utilize many different varieties of foods. And I always talk about making sure your variety is important because it variety, for one, helps to aid in your gut microbiome, right? The bacteria in your microbiome or the microbiota need that variety. Very important. So you have to eat from all of the different food groups and so on. I'm not talking about the food groups that a particular organization decided this is where you should eat from. You should eat this percentage of this and that percentage of that. Those are standards, fine, but for who, right? Who were they created for, right? What type of body composition do you have? If you have a certain type of body composition, you may not be able to assimilate greens and you may have to gather your levels of calcium and Ks and so on from other food sources. And that may require a shifting in your diet. You may not be able to be plant based, and that might be a reality. I am sorry. I am going to be straight up about it. I'm not going to hide. I'm not a doctor, but it is real. It is real how different our bodies are. All right. So let's get into it really quickly. A few things that you can do for alternatives in terms of dairy or healthier options are nuts and seeds, right? I won't jump to grains. I mean, oats has become a very popular option in terms of milks, and I understand, we're not having the discussion about only babies drink milk. We have many different uses, dynamic uses for milk alternatives, and there are many that you can utilize. The soaking and so on we'll get to another day, but today we're just focused on here are the types of seeds and nuts. Sesame seeds are a great option. It just requires a lot, and so I always say that's a great option if you're looking for something that is going to give a creamy consistency to something, a dish that you're making that is savory. Okay, so that's it for sesame seeds. I said I'll talk about oats later. Hemp seeds are a great option. Hemp seeds are on the expensive side, but they are a great high quality milk substitute if you're looking for something that is an alternative and you're trying to find something creamy. But there are other options that are creamier. All right, and that's where we get into the nuts versus the seeds. Now, you're probably saying, well, why did you skip over sunflower seeds? Sunflower seeds have a very they're an excellent option for savory items. So if you want to make a milk because you're trying to make something savory, feel free to utilize Sunflowers, excellent. Also, make sure you soak them, sprout them. And again, we'll talk about soaking and sprouting later. I don't think you're ready for it just yet. All right. The next is you can use nuts. So you've seen me utilize cashews on one or two of our demos, right? And sometimes they're the easiest to go to because, again, quality. Sometimes the quality is really good and it's cost effective to purchase cashews, right? So cashews may be the go-to. You don't have to soak them for very long as well either. So that is also very, very helpful, very supportive. Um, Hazelnut is another nut that you want to utilize or can utilize. Hazelnuts don't need a lot of soaking. The more you soak them, the less their taste and flavor, and it kind of reduces the nutrient content. But they're very high in fiber. So you may find that once you soak them and you get ready to make that milk, you'll have to strain them. Now try to peel off the skins because hazelnuts tend to have those skins on them. Um, and if you're utilizing them raw, just make sure again that you soak them properly. I Nuts like hazelnuts and so on, they're very high in fiber. They're harder to get to. I like to soak them longer, but the soaking or the long soaking actually reduces the flavor and it reduces the nutrient content. And that's because that's just how you work with hazelnuts. Like I can't tell you why. There's just hazelnuts are very, very different. And they don't give you as much of a cream, but the taste, the flavor is really, really good. And the way you get that intense flavor too with hazelnut is by actually roasting them. So you can roast your hazelnuts. I tend not to. People toast them as well. I tend not to, but if you use them raw and you say to yourself, this doesn't taste like the hazelnut taste I've wanted. I've tasted before or I've been looking forward to or want, it may be because they were not roasted or toasted. So that may be able to give you the flavor that you're looking for. But also understand too that if you're looking to mimic the flavor that you tasted in another dish prepared probably at a restaurant or something, they're probably utilizing an essence or some sort of essence that mimics the flavor. And that those things that mimic flavor intensifies the flavor too. So you think, oh, this is what it's supposed to taste like, but when you really make it from scratch and you taste it, you realize that the flavors are much more subtle than an imitation. So uh, hazelnuts, almonds are also really a great option. Make sure that you strain them if you want a really smooth milk, and whatever is left back, the pulp can be utilized to make some sort of veggie tuna or carrot and veggie tuna. You can use it to make a filling for anything because, again, we're looking at options for raw and high raw. That doesn't mean that you can't cook them and add them to some sort of veggie loaf or something. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to use those things later on. But you want to make sure you have a nut milk bag, sorry, to help you with the straining of almonds specifically, right? Not so much hazelnuts again, but with almonds, you definitely need a nut milk bag that's strong and sturdy, right? Make sure it's one of those. Don't buy the synthetic ones. The synthetic ones fall apart very easily. The holes tend to be much bigger. Make sure you buy something that's cotton or maybe even linen, right? Linseed made from flax or something. Linseed is flax, all right? So almonds, and again, almonds, I think I said before, when you soak them, they have this little peak, and that shows you that the sprouting process has initiated. That's always the best. All right. There says almonds for veggie tuna. That sounds interesting. Yes, and we'll explore that, what it looks like, how to make it absolutely delicious later on. All right. Um, Lots of almonds today. Sorry. sorry. So we explored, we talked about cashews, hazelnuts, we talked about almonds, Brazil nuts, and walnuts. So those are two of my favorite. And I'm going through the nuts. We have other nuts to come. Other nuts that are not as heavy when it comes to flavors, right? And we'll talk about that after. But Brazil nuts and hazelnuts. Brazil nuts are high in selenium, excellent option. They're a little bit on the expensive side, but again, there's a good balance between the fiber content and its fat content. The Brazil nuts are sweet, right, when you eat them. So they actually make a very delicious milk option. Walnuts are also a good option as well too because of the flavor. Okay, so we'll move on from those nuts. Coconut. So coconut milk, for those of you, because I've been waiting to get to coconut, so I'm just gonna move through. Coconut milk is actually an excellent option, and all of these I'm talking about are can be homemade, right? If you want to indulge in those that are bottled and prepared, that's fine. Just make sure to look at your labels and identify the ones that have very little ingredients. But coconuts, very easy. Make sure you select a dry coconut, brown on the outside, and once you shake it, it's dry, but there is a little bit of water on the inside. Make sure it doesn't have a ranch smell. Make sure there aren't any little white knobs coming from the eyes, the three eyes at the top. And again, make sure you give it a good shake. Make sure there are no pre-existing cracks on it when you purchase it. Once you get it home, crack it open, take the meat out, and soak it a little bit, just a little bit. Wash them out and chop them into fine pieces, and you can blend them in water. Right. So I always say, if you have a cup of chopped coconuts, you want about half cup of water. Okay, so half the amount of water to your coconut, and you can blend that. If you have a strong blender, wonderful, you're going to get something really creamy. I always like to sit the cream out after I strain it. I sit it out so that it thickens. There's something about it sitting at room temperature allows it to thicken after a while. So coconuts are a good option for that. Again, blend, strain using your nut milk bag. Do not attempt to strain coconut with a sieve unless it's super fine, because you're going to end up with half of half of the pulp inside of your milk. So try to use a nut bag. If you're someone who composts, you can take the coconut, what we call coconut trash, and you can put it in the compost, make sure it's separate, or you can reuse it, right? I don't mind sometimes reusing it if you're going to make a bake or a bun or some sort of muffin, but you won't use all of it because it's so heavy and so high in fiber. It might end up being too much. So you only use some of what you have, some of that coconut trash, called trash. All right. So those are some of the tree nut options that you have. Oats, the same thing can be done with oats. Um, it's best if you stay away from things like what's called steel cut and rolled, because sometimes the metal pieces, right? I remember, looking at an article and also having conversation with someone else who was sharing that there was some research done and they actually used a magnet and passed it through some of these grains that are ground using metal rollers and metal blades and so on, and they found that you know the magnets actually pulled out pieces of metal. So just think about that, right? Think about what is or what could possibly be lurking inside of oats and grains and other nuts too. That's why you really have to wash your nuts and soak them, and those seeds, wash them and soak them properly. So, those are some of those options. Now let's get to the greens, right? Some of the greens that are excellent options. And I'm exploring them because they all cover levels of um, calcium and B's, and greens then include things like K's for you. All right. I thought I was doing good with steel cut oats to eat. I mean, and it's not all companies, so don't get me wrong. All right. It's not all companies. Some companies are ethical and they follow high quality standards. So, it's important to suss out some of those companies, ask questions. I will not state those names. If you wish to know what some of them are, you can DM me. I'll be happy to share some sort of list with you. I don't mind. I don't mind. The other things that I wanted to cover was, and I'm just gonna give you a list of them and close out because it's already 1:05, and so I decided, okay, I'll be on here, and I'm getting off of exactly minutes to one. Didn't happen, so let's see if we could zoom through this. Lambsquarters, dandelion. Of course, we all know spinach, watercress. Don't sleep on watercress. Do not sleep on lamb's quarters and watercress. Lamb's quarters is excellent for mothers who are breastfeeding as well. Lamb's quarters is excellent if you want to increase your levels of K, but also calcium because maybe you're deficient. Maybe you have a young child who's deficient. That leads me to the story. Here's how it leads me to this story. I took you all around the world to bring you to this story. Many years ago, I went back to Grenada just for a visit. And when I visited, I actually had an exchange with another sister who was Rasta, right? We were both in the same Rasta house for a long time. We were both 12 tribe for a long time. And she was from the house of Naphtali. I was from the house of Gad. But back then, not now, right? So, and it was really good to see her because she would make aloo pies, and she was the one who was very innovative, and she evolved the different types of foods that we ate and so on in terms of them being plant-based, right? Vegan or vegetarian at that time. And when I met her in one of the stores. She instantly recognized me, and we stopped and we were talking for a while. And then she was saying she was so disappointed because she had to transition back to eating meat. And that's because she had to prepare meats for her daughter because she realized that she had anemia, and she became, she really needed, she was told by her doctor then that she needed to consume meat. So she did just that. She switched right back, and so she started to include meats, and she said it just became such a norm that it became a big part of their diet at that point. Unfortunate, right? Unfortunate. We had a long conversation then, and it was disappointing because even though she asked what could she do, and I shared a few veggies and plant-based things that she could actually use to help her, because I once um I was on the verge of you know having or being subject to anemia, right? And so I had to reverse that, and I did, right? I don't have those symptoms. I don't have anemia. And so when she said that, it took me right back to my own childhood days, or well, teenage days. And I think I may have shared this story before, but even after sharing, I realized that whoever the practitioner or the doctor was that she went to did a good number on her, because she did not in any way see that in shifting or changing the amount of greens and other food options would have helped her to reverse that presence of anemia in her family and in her daughter. So it's not until, and up to now I have not spoken to her after. I've never, I haven't seen her after. It's been a lot of years, but it was really disappointing because I have had close contact with others, my own journey as well. I've seen the difference. right, of increasing the amount of watercress. And I'm saying that because watercress grows in the Caribbean all around the riverbanks. Wherever you go, you can find watercress. It's not like, oh, dandelion is very, we can't find dandelion in Grenada. We have to learn how to make it. We have to learn how to, plant it. No, no. Lambsquarters, spinach, these things grow wild. Nobody's bundling them and charging you an arm and a leg for them. They grew absolutely wild everywhere. And it's insane because growing up, someone else had to teach me how to use spinach. It was never used in my home. Someone else had to teach me how to use it, but and I think they had to use it because they call it I guess the poor man's meat, so to speak. So it is, and that's because of how the nutrient content in it, right? So I wanted to share some of these as options and ideas so that you understand that dairy is not necessary. And we did not go into the nutritional content and all of that. I think that's fine because I think a lot of that information is quite easily available. But on Thursday, we'll talk a little bit more about soak times. We'll talk about some of the content, right? The nutritional content of some of the foods that I shared today. And I have a few more, but again, consider watercress, consider lamb's quarters, increase your spinach intake. What you may want to do is consume the baby spinach because it is much easier for the body to assimilate if it's in its raw form. If you have the older, larger spinach leaves, those can be wilted down a little bit, but you don't have to cook them down too much. All right. I said dandelion, not just the leaves, but the root as well. And we could keep going. I could talk about burdock forever, but I'm going to close today. Peace and power to you all. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, leave your questions in the comment section. If you got value from today's video, like, share, subscribe, and subscribe again. No, share again. Share twice. That's what I mean to say. Peace, you all. Thank you for being in the space. Wellness is yours. Hold on to it.